was nothing on a national level that was there, and Game came and just like, man, was on fire, and then connected with G Unit. And I remember we did like, I think it was either my 20th or 21st birthday party together and stuff, because we shared like the same birthday month, so we were like within, I think, a week of each other. And we just became really cool and good friends. And he obviously then got into the beef with 50. And I remember being on set. It was being on set for the Hate It or Love It video.
You see I'm Southside reppin', Bigfoot steppin', Zone 3 section is God flow perfection. Dating on the church like I ain't blessed they section. If we ain't talking money, I got a weak connection. That's on the hood. She said get a bag, so I get it, got it good. Don't complain about my problems, I just put it in a wood. Seen a genie the other day, she said make it good. So I wish for good health, then I wish to look as chief, not lieutenant.
Okay, another episode of Live on Lake Street. We have a very special guest in front of us today, the world famous DJ Skee. Welcome, sir.
So, Jake, how are you, man?
I'm great, man. I'm excited about this.
I'm excited to be here, man.
So
first off, congratulations to you guys for crushing it, man. I've been seeing you guys everywhere, and it's so great to see what you guys are doing to put on for the Twin Cities. So I love it.
Man, I can't even tell you how much I appreciate that.
Course,
for real.
Man.
Thank you so much. And I mean, I don't need to tell you, but congratulations to you as well, man. You're really out here. Like I said, man, world famous. So it's a pleasure to have you sitting in this chair, setting aside time for us to get this done.
Of course, man. Had to do it.
So let's keep it local right off the bat. Let's talk about these Mount Rushmores that we've been putting up.
Yeah.
I know you've seen them. I want to talk about the DJ Mount Rushmore.
Ooh, it's a tough one. I hadn't actually thought about it.
So did you see our DJ Mount Rushmore?
I've seen several of them. So which one was yours?
So we had, I have to look again because we've done so
Yeah, right.
many
That's
of
why I
them.
was like, there's so many. So which specific was your
So
list?
it was the only one that we've done to point where we actually left the fourth as a question mark.
Okay.
So that way we got people to chime
that's a
in and
great
say
one. That's
who they wanted to
That's
be
a
there
great one.
for. So
I
we
love
had DJ Youngstar.
Yep.
We had, let me make sure I don't screw this up, man. I probably should have been prepared for this.
Man, there's so many out here now that I think about it.
Yeah, and we did the videographer one the other day too, and that was quite.
Damn, that's a tough one out here too. There's so much talent. That's what you forget. Like you're like, oh yeah, but there's a lot of great talent out here.
Yeah, that was quite
And a
inflammatory.
lot of great eyes.
So we had DJ Youngstar, DJ Inferno, DJ Ray Mills, and then we left the fourth one open to suggestion. And even with leaving the fourth one open to suggestion, people still got mad.
Of course, always.
But one of the people that I think probably could have been mentioned is probably you.
Good, dude. Look, it's a list. It doesn't like those things don't matter. And I'm I've been in LA now for so long too. Like this is hometown and what I rep. But most people probably associate me with Los Angeles right now, even though this is I still come out for my Vikings, and I'm the only one that's crazy enough to leave LA in December, right? To leave the 17-degree weather to watch our team that might not be doing that good this year, but you got that love and passion. But I love it. I think that all those names are great, and I love seeing that next generation get put on. I love the fact that there's that much talent. There is a debate, right? Like that feels amazing.
Yeah. So if you had to fill that fourth spot, who would you put? And you can put yourself.
Man, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put. I mean, he just passed away. We got to do Jules, right?
Yeah, R.I.P. Brother Jules.
Like R.I.P. Jules. I mean, he just so much he did for the city. From that, I mean, there's so many dope DJs and talent. Sophia, what she's doing, Lizzo, and what she's trying to do for the community is incredible. Advance is doing a lot, and he's always been holding it down behind the scenes. Side Rio, of course, like from out here and like doing so much. Again, like me left, and but is crushing it with YSL and like some of the biggest hip hop artists in the world and producing for. He got a record with T.I. and Jay-Z. Like I remember when he played me, that I was like, damn. So and then of course everybody that you hit. Man. It's a long. It's got to be a lot. We got to expand Mount Rushmore. There's a lot of good people out here.
Yeah, chisel some more faces out.
There's so many people. People like even like Mardigan's been. I guess it was with the Timberwolves game last night. He's been doing it 15 years now. And crush it. Like there's a lot of new fresh blood. A lot of talent out here. I just love to see it. I love the fact that we're talking and have this many on there.
Yeah.
And I got to give a big shout out to my boy DJ Ah Nah, who's the first one that put me on. When I was selling mixtapes out of Urban Lights. Shout out to Tim. And he was the first one that put me on radio when I was doing a KMOJ shift at 4 a.m. on Saturday nights. My first shift as a 16-year-old. So shout out to DJ Ah Nah. Yeah,
you got started super young.
Yeah, man.
I mean, I heard the story that, your connection with Steve Rifkin and you kind of, we could talk about that more. I really appreciate your ability in your career to kind of finesse things in your career by just being real and not asking for shit, just creating relationships and then having that shit happen naturally. I think that that's amazing. Not, you know what I mean? Like, so I know that your connection with Steve Rifkin kind of started that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I heard a rumor that you actually like skipped the day of high school to go meet with Steve Rifkin. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the long story is, so it's crazy. So I was selling PlayStations. I never wanted to work a real job, so I'd pay, like, I went to Central in St. Paul, and all my boys would work like Best Buy or Target or whatever, right? So I'd slide them 20 to tell me when the next Xbox or PS2 was coming in, and go buy them and sell them for double the money on eBay. That's how I was hustling and making my money. And I got connected with Stretch Armstrong in New York. I was doing a lot on the internet, right? And I was fortunate. I was at the place when, like, the internet was first coming to prominence. This is
like
2000,
MySpace
2001,
shit?
even before then, right? Like, this is like, and the music industry didn't know what to do, and I made all these connections just because I was taking advantage of new technology and grew up living that a whole new generation didn't. So that was kind of my first advantage, and that's why I was able, being a kid from out here in the Twin Cities, to make connections in New York and LA where things were happening. And from that, Stretch connected me with Steve, who happened to be looking for a PS2 for his son for Christmas. It was right before Christmas. And I remember I just gotten a two-way pager. So at the time, everybody in the industry talked on these SkyTel two-way pagers. And I just got it so I could feel like I was a part of the industry, like nobody else out here, very few people had them. And I had a couple connections, and I got the text, they're like, I'm going to connect you with Steve, he wants one. So I remember getting it. It was in school. And I got a beep, and I walked out to the hallway. I said I had to go to the bathroom, and then made a call. And it's like, yeah, I'll hook you up, blah, 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 send him one. And then just stayed close, right? Like, I didn't go to him like, I want a job, I want to do this. You know, for me, I was just like, I knew this connection was so valuable. And I was like, best case, thinking I could start a street team out here in Minneapolis and get a free Wu-Tang Clan shirt, right? Yeah. That would have been the dopest thing ever to me. And, like, maybe when they're in town, go to a show. Yeah. And from that, you know, a couple months later, I had a bunch of ideas and the internet stuff. I sent Steve a letter on what he was doing wrong with his label and a bunch of ideas that I had just to help facilitate that. He didn't ask for it, and I wasn't pushy. I was like, hey, I want to send you something. Is that cool? He was like, yeah, all good. And then he's like, I love it. Can you fly to New York and meet with me? So I was like, yeah. So ditched high school for a day. And the reality is, the first day that I did it, I flew to New York. I flew out in the first flight in the morning and was coming back the last flight at night. And I went to meet with him, and the meeting got canceled. He had something pop up with his lawyers, and again, this is the CEO of one of the biggest hip hop and music industry labels or record labels at the time. So, but I was crushed, because still being like, anytime that happens, it hurts. But especially as a kid, you don't know what to expect, and it was tough for a second. But I was like, all right, like, look, he's the CEO, like, that's what happens, right? Like, there's different levels, and he had a different priority. He had some emergency he had to put out with his lawyers, so. It was cool. He's like, don't worry. And he's like, all good. I'll bring you out. And he stayed to his word. So 2 weeks later, he brought me out. So I ditched high school again, went out and met with him. And he just offered me a job on the spot, which I didn't really expect. I thought he might be like, hey, I want to do this, or what can I do, or ask advice, or talk about doing some stuff in Minnesota. And I was just like, all right. Like,
what was the job position he offered you?
He just said, come work for me. He didn't even give me a title or anything. Work. He said, come work for me. And I was originally going to move to New York. And I was born in New York, and I was spending more time out there. And a lot of the mixtape scene that I'd kind of, like, even being around Stretch was New York-based. That's where mixtapes came from. And then 9/11 happened. He was bi-coastal, so he wanted to be with his family that was based in L.A. So then he was like, moved to L.A., which I'd never been to, and it was actually like kind of disappointing at that time. I was like, damn, like, I really wanted to be in New York. Yeah. That's where I was born. That's where I had connections. I didn't have anything in LA, but I was like, what's the worst that could happen, right? Like, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. It was like being drafted in high school to the NBA, and I was like, I was planning on going to college and like doing a typical path, but once that happened, it was actually, I was still, a junior in high school, so I had to figure out a way to graduate high school early so I could do that. So luckily, I found a way. I took like online. It was the first like online schooling, which is going to sound so old now because that wasn't a thing. They had just approved it by the school board, and the principal didn't even know about it. I did like the research and homework, so I like hustled my ass off. Like, my thing is, it's always you just find a way, right? Like, if you want something hard enough, you find a way. So I did. I probably shouldn't have, and figured a way to do that. And 17, left high school and moved to LA, and was fortunate enough where it worked out. But it was even that path, getting connected to him, nurturing that relationship, and along that time there were disappointments, flying there, having to cancel and fly back to Minneapolis all by myself, right? And then not being able to move where I thought I was moving. Like, I'd already like signed for an apartment in New York. Like, it was happening. Like, I was done in there, and And I was excited about it, and I didn't know anything about LA, so it was like being transported and being uprooted, but, made the jump, and it worked out, luckily.
Yeah, it seemed to work out. This reminds me, have you watched the Wu-Tang show on Hulu?
Incredible. I love that show. And I usually, because I'm in the industry, so I usually hate, I didn't get into Empire. I didn't get into a lot of music industry shows. And I thought it would be like that. But my boy Dave East was in it. So I was like, let me give it a shot. And it heard good feedback. And I love it. It might be my favorite show. It's so well done.
It's great.
Shout to RZA. Those guys crushed it.
So did they get Steve right in the show?
I haven't seen the second episode. I saw him. I haven't seen the second season yet.
Okay.
I've seen the first season. So he's in it a little. So
got it.
They're almost there, but he's in it more the second season.
Yeah,
I've heard.
he's in a lot.
So that's where I have not. So I was waiting on it. We actually did the premiere in New York. I dropped a Derek Jeter card and I put Dave East hidden on it. So Dave and I did a whole premiere, and we teamed up with Hulu to do the launch party for it. But it was on in the background, so I couldn't really pay attention. And I wanted to wait until they released all the episodes so I could binge it. I didn't like doing the 1 week thing. So I'm actually probably going to watch it by the time this airs. That's on my list when I get back, and I'm home for hopefully a week or 2 weeks. So
they got renewed for another season too.
It's so great. It's
wonder,
so dope. It's such a good show, dude.
What if they get to the point where you're going to have to be a part of the show?
Incredible.
You may be portrayed.
Right?
You may be portrayed in the show.
Right?
Who would play you?
I have no idea. I have no idea. Hopefully somebody good looking, right?
Oh, that's great. Okay. So obviously, I know you've discussed this many times, but me being a really big fan of the game,
Yeah.
that 300 bar situation really is what kind of
100%.
skyrocketed you the fuck out of here.
That's what put me on. I mean, I was fortunate enough in my career, right? I moved out, and I was always DJing. I started off in, selling mixtapes. I thought I was selling drugs out of my locker in Central High School. I remember getting in trouble. And then, Tim at Urban Lights was the first to pick those up. And then he made more connections and put me on the radio with Aw Nah at KMOJ. And from that, I was always DJing, and I just knew, as soon as I started DJing, that's what I was gonna do, right? And but I really wanted to be in the music industry, and the opportunity came, with Steve. He wasn't hiring me because I was a DJ, that was cool, but I wasn't that. So he was hiring me for really my knowledge and the ideas that I had, especially for these new internet platforms. So I was fortunate enough to learn the business and the music industry side of things first. And from there, I was always DJing, even in LA, made a lot of good connections. I remember when I was working for Steve, my boy introduced me to the manager of this new artist that Dr. Dre had just signed named Game. And I heard his music, and I just knew day one, I was like, wow, this kid is incredible. Let's connect with him. So I connected with him early, and I was doing a lot of marketing for different brands like T-Mobile and Chrysler, and would always hook him up with things. So we built a really just cool friendship. And then I remember the night, he was like, man, they want me to sign to G Unit. And G Unit at the time, 50 had just came out, Lloyd Banks, the album, they were on top of the world. And he'd been signed to Dre. He hadn't found the right record yet. And so it was moving a little slower. So this was a way to kind of accelerate him getting out there. And dude is just so, Game is so talented. Still one of the most talented rappers I've ever been in the studio with. So that connection happened, and it was just magic. We saw what happened, right? And the records they put out, and it took the world by fire, because G-Unit had, obviously, New York on lock. They had the South with Young Buck, who was on fire at the time. And then Game was the West Coast answer to that. And he had the perfect story, already the background with Dre, and people in the mix knew.
Game was really the West Coast savior.
There wasn't much.
There was not a lot happening on the West Coast.
There, and I was there, right? There wasn't any, especially new artists, right? There was nothing. There wasn't really anything going on outside of local stuff. There was nothing on a national level that was there. And Game came and just man, was on fire, and then connected with G Unit. And I remember we did I think it was either my 20th or 21st birthday party together and stuff, because we shared the same birthday month, so we were within I think a week of each other, and we just became really cool and good friends. And he obviously then got into the beef with 50, and I remember being on set. It was being on set for the Hate It or Love It video, and there was just this tension. They wouldn't even sit next to each other in the car if you go back and look to it, and you could tell there was some stuff happening. There was, look, you get two alpha personalities, right? Yep. And everybody wants to take credit. 50, I don't think, was happy that Game was getting all the success, and he'd actually done all that, and Game maybe wasn't giving him the proper credit for some of the work that he did. Anyways, it was clashing. There was things behind the scenes. They got it right. And there was the incident where somebody got shot, all that drama. Then they patched it up. And I remember meeting Game after they'd done the first, they did a press conference, I think. Was it Jesse Jackson or Farrakhan? Somebody came in to help mediate that beef. And I remember meeting with with Game in LA right after all that happened, or right actually before that press conference, he was going to go out and do it. And he's like, yeah, we're going to be good. Like, they're solving it. But he's like, I'm still not messing with dude. Like, it is what it is. And I happened to then meet him. Like, a few months go by, right? And 50 started still throwing shots at Game. Game wasn't saying much, but on the radio, like, oh, I wrote his records, blah, blah, blah. Like, they had kind of separated, but it was supposed to be amicable. There was no beef, but 50 threw these little jabs, and Game didn't like that. And I had my offices at the time were right on Melrose in L.A., and it was right across from, ironically enough, the popular store at the time was either Ed Hardy or Christian Audige, one of the brands. And yeah, exactly. Which, by the way, I never wore. You'll never find my picture in those things, luckily. But
you didn't do no trucker hats?
Never had. I never could get into them, and I was always a fitted guy. And from there, but Game happened to be over there because my boy T Mills was doing all the marketing, and he was picking up some shirts. And I just ran into him. I was walking down the street, like, to get some food or get a juice or something, and he played me. He's like, I want to give you this record. I'm going at 50. It's time. I was like, what? You're really going to, like, diss him? He's like, yeah, he's talking, blah, blah, blah. Like, we're going in. So he gave me this. He's like, I'm doing 300 bars. And Game had already done 100 bars, 200 bars on an old mixtape. So it was a thing that he did. And I was like, damn, that's going to be a long record. Like, it's going to be like 15 minutes.
Right.
And he had, like, the first 3 minutes done, but it was all over one beat. It was over the KRS-One BDP Love's Gonna Get You beat, which is dope, but, like, very monotonous, right? And you can't, like, listen to that for more than a few minutes. And I was like, damn, you can't go out like that and do it for 15 minutes. So he didn't even ask anything. I had a studio at my office, and I just did like a Jackin' for Beats style mix and sent him a file and was like, yo, check your email. You should do some stuff like this, just an idea. 15 minutes later, he calls me like, I'm on the way to the studio to you. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, we're going to record it right now. I was like, all right. And that was like there's like different moments in my life where you realize like all these things that you've worked for and prepared yourself for, where there's like an opportunity that comes in and you have to take advantage of it. Yep. The first was connecting with Steve, and when he offered me that job, right? Like, it wasn't easy. It's like everybody's like, hey, I want to leave and do that. But when you actually have that offer in your hand and you're like, wow, I have to figure out a way, graduate high school early, disrupt my entire life plan, like not go to college, go somewhere brand new, you don't know anybody. I didn't even have a job. Like, Steve, the first day in office, was like, sat me at a desk and was like, you know what to do? And I was like, yeah. But I got to make my entitled, like, there was no direction. Like, Steve just was great at seeing talent. Like, hey, just figure it out. And, like, I'm one of those type of people. But that wasn't easy. But taking advantage of that, like, or jumping in and doing that. And the second was with Game. I had a really successful marketing company at the time. I'd left Steve and launched my own marketing company. I was known in the industry, if you remember the T-Mobile Sidekick.
I do. For
doing all the marketing and product placement from that. So getting it in, like, the Jay-Z, Beyonce music videos. We really pioneered, like, not only like the first consumer smartphone, because there was BlackBerries for business. This was for like kids, but also product placement, getting it in all the right places. And we're working with Daimler Chrysler, but DJing was what I wanted to do, right? Yeah. And there's not that many opportunities, especially on a nationwide scale, to get your name and your brand out there. So when that happened, I realized quickly, and I was like, shit, my life's going to change. Do I want to jump through that door? And also that was in the middle of a big beef too. And
I was going to say, was there any apprehension about the potential danger?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, look, I'm a white boy from St. Paul, right? Like, living, like, this is real LA gang shit. Like, in studios, like, people have guns. Like, people have already gotten shot in this beef before it happened. People ended up dying in
at the radio station. At
100%,
that,
yeah, one of the most secure radio stations in
which
New York.
Says they don't give a fuck. It could go down anywhere.
And later on, like, during the beef, like, multiple people died, right?
Yeah.
Like, people are serving life terms in jail for things. Like, it really went down. But for me, I was like, look, I'm obviously like associated with Game and producing those things, and that's the side that I'm on. Like, I'm not out there like gang banging, and I think I've been able to walk between all these different worlds and the corporate worlds and working with these brands and being on TV and being in the mixtapes because I've never tried to be something that I wasn't, right? And people respect you. Like, if I came in like, yo, blood, what's up? And like started throwing stuff and wearing red, people would have looked at me like crazy, and then you make yourself a target. But I'm like, look, I'm a producer at the end of the day, and this is the opportunity that I had. And to be honest, like if 50 had came at me and like, yo, let's produce the same scenario, I would have done the same thing for him. Like as a producer and as a DJ, you're just kind of riding with those things. And, then Game really, we did all those mixtapes, put it on, and yeah, it was intimidating. But at the time, like, I think one of the things that I've always had is you just like can't let fear guide you. You just got to jump in. And looking back, like, yeah, there's, I probably wouldn't do that nowadays as I'm a little more sophisticated and have a lot more to lose. But then I was like, yo, this is my opportunity. Like, this is probably not going to ever happen again in your life. And if I didn't do that, who knows if I would have made it as a DJ. I might have just been in the music industry side of thing that loved DJing. But I had to jump all in, and, I just kind of did it and reacted.
Yeah, and it worked out.
But I realized early on too, and especially in the music industry, they always say the old adage is you're only as hot as your latest hit. So I was like, this is going to be dope for 3 months. And what's next? So I knew like the day that came out, and then my phone started blowing up. Like DJ Drama's hitting me up, like all these artists, like people that I'd even known, like Fat Joe, like even 50s Camp were hitting me, like, yo, what's up? Like, what's going on? I'm like, hey, like, so it's there. But like all these, like I was like, all right, I'm on. This is my like lightning in a bottle moment. But I need to expand. Like, I can't be like, yo, I did 300 bars, because nowadays we're talking about it. Probably more people that are watching this are never even going to heard of that, right? Like, especially young generation, because it doesn't exist on Spotify, because of sampling and licensing rights, unfortunately. But like, if I just sat there and was like, yeah, I did that, I would have been cool for 3 months and nothing would have happened. So I was very conscious, like, all right, if I'm going to do this, this is going to be my plan. I'm going to use this as my crack in the door, but then I want to expand myself and, of course, continue to do the stuff with Game and ride that. But I looked around, especially being in LA, and I was like, the mixtape scene isn't here like it is in New York, and that's where I wanted to be. And what I grew up around, and Stretch Armstrong and even Steven being at Loud Records, like I saw the importance of that, and I was like, shit, I could own that and bring that to LA. And then got connected with Snoop, right? And was like, all right, let's do that. And he wanted to put out a project, so like, done. So then started just building my way up, ended up on radio at Sirius XM and then Power 106 and different stations, and establishing myself there and connecting with new artists, the new generation, from new artists like this kid K-Dot, right? Like I remember I met Kendrick when he went by K-Dot at first. Before he was signed, he was on this label TDE. He was 16 years old. He came to the studio after we did 300 bars and did a freestyle. So I met Kendrick like, be like 05, 06, like early on. And I remember he could just rap. He rapped for 15 minutes straight, a freestyle off the dome. Yep. And my reaction was like, incredible rapper, but let's see if he can actually make a record and put together an album. Like if he could do that, and he wasn't ready. He couldn't do that at the time, right? Like he was a freestyle guy, and then he perfected his craft and became the best ever. So it's just, you know.
Whoa. That's what we're going with?
I think, I mean, you've got to put him, you're putting him up there on that list.
He's on the list,
those
for
things.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, like, look, it's tough to say best ever, because as we talk with Mount Rushmore, there's different things. I mean, I think the most impactful hip hop artist, and I'll probably get heat for it, is Drake. Like, you look at the track record, the resume, like, you can't deny he's the greatest. Sales, hits. Like, Jay was that before, but Jay didn't have the records that Drake has. Like, if you look at their catalogs, and I love Jay. Like, Blueprint is probably my personal favorite album of all time, and the one that I've listened to the most. But you can't deny
musically, Drake has surpassed Hov.
Yeah, and like the impact for this generation and how big he's been, like, Drake is that. But Kendrick, like, from a purist perspective, there's nobody that I'm looking forward to dropping an album right now more than Kendrick. I think he's the greatest, especially from that purist thing, and he's done it. He's done the social commentary, made the successful, music, written the street stuff, put in the work, like, from a pure hip hop fan, like from a pure hip hopper, I think it's K-Dot, right? Like, I don't think anybody could deny him, and I don't think anybody can go bar for bar with him. So
I would say Cole.
Cole's there, but I still would take, and I love Cole, but I still would take Kendrick.
Yeah, sometimes, like you said earlier, it's like, what have you done for me lately?
100%. And let's see, hopefully we get that collab album someday.
It's been since 2017 since we got K-Dot album. So
I know, right? So, and
I'm still not convinced he's not retired. You're an industry insider. What do you know? Is the album coming? Have you heard it?
It's coming. I haven't heard it. I got to see. I can't wait to hear it. He's been busy. I mean, like, him putting out, too, and doing all the PG Lang stuff is awesome. Shout out to Dave. And, like, Keem is one of my favorite. Baby Keem has been one of my favorite new artists. That whole album was so dope, and you could tell the influence. They did it great there. So I think he's been working there, and he's got a couple highlight standout features on that album. So
I heard somebody say that was the album. But there's no Kendrick album coming. The Keem album was the Kendrick album.
Nah, I think there's a Kendrick one coming.
I hope so.
I'll see it. I do too. I mean, I think it's much needed, but yeah. So it's like being in those things. But for me, I was always very conscious. Like, you got to take advantage of those opportunities, those cracks in the door, and jump in, and then also know what's next, and never just like, if I was just Games DJ, and that's why I didn't tour with him and stuff. He already had a good tour DJ, but like, could have jumped on and done those things. I didn't want to just be so associated with any one artist. Not thinking it was his Game. I wouldn't have done that with anybody, because then you're just pigeonholed and labeled, and then you're just dependent on somebody else for your whole life, and I've never wanted to do that.
Yeah, that's a really great way of thinking about it, because there's a lot of people out there that have gotten into that position, and that's
100%. Because
imagine, we know them,
right?
Yeah.
Like, imagine, and a lot of people, that's how I came in, right? Like, people are like, oh, that's Games DJ, and they thought I did that, and absolutely I did, and took advantage of it, and I'm so grateful for him for opening those doors and doing that. But like, if I was just Games DJ, I wouldn't have gotten a TV show. I wouldn't have built all the businesses that I've done. I wouldn't have expanded and worked with all these different artists. And, you know, I've just, if you can tell by my career and all the things that I do, I don't like being just pigeonholed into doing one thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not just the Vikings DJ, even though there's a whole group of people that know me for that. That's great, and I love it. But if that was all I did, like, man, I've got to do more.
Yeah, and we got to give you your flowers, too, because it wasn't just game that opened the door for you.
Yeah.
Like, you had a lot to do with his career moving forward as well.
Yeah, what was interesting at that time, too, because Game was in such a unique position because, well, he's a massive, like, platinum artist, hugely popular. He was in a beef with the guy that's the biggest artist in the world on his own label. And so
bully.
When you're that label, like, who are you choosing? You have a guy that's the biggest artist in the world that, by the way, you have a sub-label signed to you with multiple artists in that ecosystem, and then another guy who's big but doesn't have the same ecosystem, doesn't have a label with you, and isn't as big as the other. Of course you're going to choose that from a business decision. So he was like on an island over there. So it was really just us putting out mixtapes and putting out music and, you know, guiding, like, I was almost like guiding his career path and trying to keep him relevant in that time when he, like, the label wouldn't put out music. They wouldn't support him and do that. Mixtapes were the only way to communicate and do that, and that's what helped really make him that moment. We had so many incredible mixtapes and you know, such just impact, I think, on the streets when that happened. I mean, even when, like, going to 300 bars when that dropped, it was just, I mean, it was a 15-minute long diss record they were playing on every radio station across the country, which was nuts.
Who are some other artists that you impacted their career? I know you've had impact on quite a few artists that we are.
I mean,
enormous. Now, I mean,
I've been fortunate enough, and look, for every artist, I always say that, like, if you look at the bio, right, and like the highline, if somebody's describing me, if you get the one bar, it's like first to play and introduce people, whether it's, you know, on one end, Kendrick Lamar, hip hop guys, Post Malone, Travis Scott. I think his first radio interview, definitely first TV appearance was with us. Logic.
I believe Post was. You did Post's first interview as well, right?
100% Post.
Yep.
I knew Post, and it's funny, I met Post a couple years before that. Funny story with Post is I'd met him in Vegas. He was with some gamer kids because he was really deep in the gaming scene. And he was like this kid that was there and like, yo, check out my boy's mixtape. And I saw this kid in like loafers. I was like, oh, cool, he's super cool, like, but didn't expect it. And then White Iverson came out and started bubbling, and I remember I told my boy Mike that was working with me at the time, I was like, yo, let's find him, let's get him in here. That record's the shit. Like, I want to do that, like, super early on. And he came in the office. He's like, we met. And I was like, where? He's like, 2 years ago. I was like, oh, shit, that was you. And I took him out to Vegas. We brought him to, like, it was interesting. It was like a night, and there's like a strip club involved. He was underage. I got him in. Bieber was there, and they ended up doing a tour together. So it was like all these worlds, like, intersected. Like, it's just a small world. But yeah, then was the first to put him on, first interview he ever did. First time he was on radio, and then first TV appearance separately on, and first TV interview on Skee TV later on. So to watch him grow was phenomenal. And then, like, people like Gaga on the pop scene, and, you know, a lot of different artists. I've been fortunate enough to be there, and there's a lot of other artists too. It's always like those are the ones that get credit, but there's been, you know, a lot of other artists that I might have even believed in more and put on first that just, you know, for whatever reason didn't make it. But I've always just found, you know, my passion was always, especially coming from mixtapes, was new music and introducing the world to new things. And even with what I do in business as an entrepreneur, it's always been about, like, identifying what's next and being first with it. We started doing a ton in the Dash side in the metaverse space about 18 months ago, and people thought I was crazy. And now, you know, my phone won't stop ringing the last month since Facebook changed their whole name and company vision to Meta. So I just get a kick out of being, like, first and identifying trends and helping introduce those to the world. So
yeah, that's really what you do. I mean, yes,
that's my one skill, right? Like, I'm able to see things that, I mean, even if you take back, like, the reason I got hired was because the internet was cracking, and I was like, there's something happening here. I'm great at identifying, like, water bubbling and then figuring out how to connect the dots. And that's really why I got my first job, why I got on with Game and put on these other artists, and even the work that I'm doing now on the business side.
And not to discredit anybody that's sat in the chair before you, but I feel like that's partially why you're here. You're seeing it before everybody else.
100%, man.
Yeah.
100%. That's why I saw it. I love it. Exactly. You guys are already at another level. I see it growing.
Yeah, man. Yeah, this has been fun. So let's talk about the DJing the Vikings games. So I'm always curious how that comes about. Is that you, hey, I want to DJ the Vikings games, you want to have me? Or are they like, you're a monster, can you come DJ for us?
Yeah, it was great. So when they opened the new stadium, the US Bank Stadium, I think it was 2016, they knew that I was a fan, right? Like, I was always tweeting about it and posting about it. And you know, fortunate and unfortunate, right? Like the good thing about being from Minnesota, there's not a lot of other like superstar talent. If I was in LA, right, like people wouldn't care if DJ Skee was a LA Lakers fans. You have Dr. Dre and like some of those things. So Minnesota, there wasn't. I was a bigger fish in a smaller pond to say. So they'd reached out when it happened, like, hey, would you be interested in? And it was funny, I got connected through Adrian Peterson, who I became friends with. I was like, yo, I want to get season tickets there. I know you're going to get me that plug. So he's the one that hooked me up so I could get the front row seats that I have now, because he was the face of the franchise at the time. And they knew that I was involved. And they're like, yo, would you want to come out and DJ our grand opening on Sunday Night Football against the Packers? And I was like, I'm already going to be yes. Like, yes. It's like a dream come true, right? Like, and I'm fortunate enough in my career where I'm able to do things like, I really only do things that I like and find passionate about. It's definitely like I'm not coming out here because it's making me billions of dollars and because I love, again, leaving LA in December and coming to the Rome Weather. It's really because I'm fan and passionate and love it and have so much fun with it. So I was like, all right, when they came in, I was like, all right, I'm gonna make this like a festival atmosphere. We're gonna get the fans in early. We're gonna amp it up. We're gonna do something that hasn't really been done in NFL. Like DJs weren't a common thing at that time. And kudos to the Vikings, the whole team there, Brian, Greg, Darius, like they really let me do my thing. Ownership's been great there and let them kind of have this freedom. And we came out, did a crazy set. It worked so well. They're like, you want to come back for any other game? Like, let's do it. That was awesome. It was a great game. We won. Just like one of the highlights of my career, right? And so I was like, all right, I'll be back next week, and haven't left since. And in that time, we've won, with the Vikings, we've won Best Game Day Entertainment in the NFL for, obviously not last year because it was COVID, but every year before that. And running, which I think says a lot, especially being in a smaller market. This isn't LA, this isn't New York, this isn't Chicago, Miami, Atlanta, where entertainment is prevalent. This is Minnesota. So for the team to win that, I think says a lot. And we've helped a lot with, creating content and bridging the gap between, culture and lifestyle and the players, and creating stuff with them, talking about music and things that they care about. And, I've been fortunate enough to, I try to come back to as many games as I can. And, beyond just DJing, helping, book talent, bringing in, my favorite game ever is still the Minneapolis Miracle, right? Like,
man, you were on the field for that shit.
That was incredible.
You were
like, literally, that's
you were hugging
Stephon
Diggs.
So Diggs was my guy. Steph is my guy. And I remember we brought out T-Pain. We did a dope medley. And I remember going in the locker room, I was like, we're going to crush it. And it's funny because Sean Payton had reached out, Coach Payton from the Saints, a couple weeks earlier, and we'd done some work with them. And they were coming to our house. I'm like, oh, we're going to go live. I was like, we're bringing out T-Pain. Like, we're going all out. We did a crazy set before the game. The energy was live. The energy was so crazy that Coach Payton pulled all his players off the field when he saw me come out and bring all that. She's like, I'm not letting you guys, like, see that. So then we have, like, Payne perform. As they're walking in the tunnel, we timed it perfect. So he's, like, doing All I Do Is Win, win, win. It was just, like, an epic pregame moment. The game was great up until that fourth quarter, and it was funny. Like, I'd given up hope that last play. And I'm the eternal optimist. That one play was the one where I was like, all right, we're not going to win. And then I looked down and looked up. I heard a little roar, looked up, saw Steph make that catch and run in there. And I was like, first looking for flags. At first I was like, get out of bounds, because I was like, there's no time. I'm like, we got to kick the field goal.
Yes.
Like, it was like, get out of bounds. And he kept running. And I was like, oh my God, this is actually happening. No flags. I was on the field. Literally an epic moment of my life. And I remember starting to walk on the field. People are starting to convolute on there, and I see Kyle Rudolph. He comes up and he's like, yo, get off. And I'm like, what? I was like, fuck, was there a flag? Like, what happened? They had to kick the extra point. They had to bring in the other Saints. I was like, all right, cool, makes sense. And then I remember right after that, me and Diggs would always do stuff on like social media. So he walks to me, he's like, yo, let's do it. I'm like, what? He's like, grab your camera. I was like, so I grab out my camera, and he's like, I'm like, what did you do? And he's like, I don't know, I blacked out. So I got his first interview before he did anybody else with that. He's still all sweaty, but that, and I remember I did not leave the stadium for like 4 hours that night. I literally there's pictures of me laying on the field. I was so happy and so excited. So literally it might have been the best moment of my life.
That was the biggest emotional roller coaster moment in my Vikings fandom.
I think
I punched a hole in my wall.
Yeah, I think that's it. I'm not surprised.
Because we won.
I'm not surprised. Like, I mean, you've seen the reaction videos from that. For me, that was literally like probably the most exciting moment in my life, and so much fun. And it felt like all these years of build up. And even though we didn't win it that year, like that moment was still
it's a little sad that's a highlight. That tells you a lot about the team.
I know, right? We'll get
tough.
Another one, but just being there that moment, and especially being so involved that day, and being there, and like being so close with Diggs, like it was so like that was
you're responsible.
I won't
Yet
take a
again.
response.
Yet again.
You know, I always say like the music and what we do in the entertainment, what we try to do is we try to play for the players. I'm like, we're never going to win the game, but hopefully we can motivate the players like that extra 1%. Because in pro sports, sometimes it makes the difference. And hopefully he was amped up that made him jump that 1 extra inch.
I'm giving it to you, man.
To make that catch.
You
so.
started Game's career. You started Gaga's career. You started Kendrick's career. You made the Minneapolis Miracle happen.
I'll tell
what
you,
else?
I won't take credit. I got to give credit to those guys on the field. But I was just happy to be there and be a small part. So.
New Rushmore going up today. DJ Skee 4 times.
Let's go.
That's it. Oh, for all of those, for all of those accolades.
We try, man. We try.
Oh man. So, did you have something to do with the Chrysler 300 becoming
that's why I was doing marketing
popular
before, at the time. Yeah, so I was doing. I worked for Steve, and then I branched out and started my own marketing agency. This is right when before 300 bars came, like directly before it. So I was doing all the marketing for Daimler Chrysler. That's why you saw it in the G Unit videos and all those music videos, and we made it hot like in the streets. And from that, that's actually I sold my company and agency. We were doing great work when the DJ stuff happened because I was like, if I want to make it as a DJ, I have to dedicate 100% right now to build my brand because I have this crack in the door and I can't half-ass it. So I stepped down from everything that I was doing to focus purely on like making it as a DJ because that's what I really wanted and that was my dream and my passion and I was like if I like now I have to put in that work I have to go all in and make that decision and I did. So yeah, I stopped doing all that stuff, but yeah, that's how I met a lot of artists and people in the business side.
So wait, is the Chrysler 300 named after Game's 300 bars?
It's actually a good idea. It was out a little before that.
We're really tying this shit together.
Yeah, I know, right?
God.
I never even connected the dots between that. That's crazy. 300 is a special number for me, I guess. So.
Apparently. You have a connection to the record label?
Of course. My boy Ryan out here, Hype CEO, that's fam.
Man.
So we love it. So he'll be at the game tonight. So
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I can't believe it, man. So I got nothing else for you. I know you got to get out of here. You got to get to the game.
Good, yeah,
you got to get to the stadium, man.
Excited, man.
I hope
it's gonna be a good one. You know, it's funny. It's like I think we're gonna win tonight and get enough hope, and hopefully we can make a little run.
I think we're gonna win tonight because nobody expects us to win.
100%. But here's the thing, though. If you look at like this year's been unfortunate. We've had so many injuries. Like talking to some of the players before the season on defense, and defense hasn't been statistically that great this season, right?
Yeah.
But before the season, there's been a lot. I mean, there's been a lot of injuries, but defensive guys are like, I'm looking around the locker room and you're like, you see all pro. Like the roster is as solid as it's ever been. And I think tonight's the first time that a lot of them are going to play together for the first time without one being injured. So, I mean, like, look, all it takes is getting in and you've seen anything can happen. And we have as talented a roster as anybody. I mean, just go look at that roster and the offense is clicking, which has been historically like the challenge for that. I mean, JJ is just incredible. Like, we know what
top
Thielen
five
does. Dalvin's a beast. Kirk looks incredible. The defense on paper is incredible. And I think now that they're all together, hopefully it starts clicking. So let's get it together. And hopefully we have more than a miracle this year.
Oh, man, that would be great. I'm not going to get my hopes up.
No, you can't. It's a Minnesota sports fan, right? Like nothing since it's going to be over 30 years. It'll be 31 years next year, right? 91 for major men's sports.
Yeah.
So,
oh,
crazy. And that's why the other coolest thing that I did was the Twins drop this year was the 30th anniversary for 91 World Series because that's what got me into sports as a kid. We just moved to Minnesota and going to those games is literally what made me not just a Minnesota fan, but a sports fan, going to Game 6 and 7 of the World Series. So, now to be working with those guys too, and we did like a really sick collab that I designed around the 30th anniversary of the World Series where MLB let me redo like the 91 World Series logo, which is insane and they don't usually do. So, I'm just living my dream right now on all fronts.
That's amazing, man. It's great to see. It's great to hear.
Thank you, man.
The last thing I want to ask you though is, have you heard our theme song?
I have not.
Okay, so
wait, have I heard? Is it in the intro? Because I always watch the clips in the middle, right?
It is in the intro, but our theme song has been ringing off at the Timberwolves games.
Wait, what is it? What is it?
It's the live. It's just a live on Lake theme song.
I think I might have heard it before.
It's the 50 Cent flip.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't even realize that was. Oh, now it makes sense.
Can we get it in rotation at
Let's
US
go.
Bank?
Let's go.
We're gonna send it to you.
We got to get it all.
Yeah, we're gonna send it to you, man. Cool.
Yeah.
Closing thoughts? Anything you want to tell anybody?
Man, I appreciate it. Shout out to everybody out here. I try to be open to all the up and coming talent, right? Like I really want to see like some artists make it big in this era from out here. So it's so great seeing different people take off. I've mentioned Sad Rio, we mentioned Sophia and Lizzo and what they've done, and I want to continue to see the scene grow. And like to everybody out there, right? Like, look, I'm just a kid from St. Paul. I'm not better, smarter, more advantaged than anybody else. I just put in the work, saw opportunities, took advantage of them when they arose, put that crack in the door, and I can do it, right? Like, you guys should be able to do 100 times more than me. I'm not that talented, so.
Nah, don't do that. Don't do that.
No, but like,
You're-
seriously, like, everybody out there, like, it's tough, and it's tough being in the Midwest, right? Like, especially now you're stuck in the snow, and you just don't think you can go to LA or New York. It seems unobtainable, but nowadays you don't, need to because of the internet and the way that we're all connected, but like, don't let anybody stop you. You can do anything. There's no reason that like all these, like, I can do it and these other people can, and you should be able to do 10 times more. You just got to put in the work and go do it.
No, you're definitely proof and inspiration.
No, I appreciate it
for
man.
myself and for anybody watching, I would hope.
Appreciate it,
so,
man. No, I appreciate
and
it.
this has been a pleasure, man. Really, I've enjoyed this conversation.
Been amazing being here, man.
Keep killing shit.
Let's go.
We're gonna be watching, and yeah, I got nothing else, man. This has been great.
Lake Street, let's go.
It's been another episode of Live on Lake Street. I'm Jake Faircloth. Follow me everywhere at Jake Faircloth1. DJ Skee. We appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you, Jake. Thank you, guys.
Damn, Woody. In high school, I let it blam, Woody. I wasn't playing, Woody. I'm coming straight out the south. Hey, genius, best watch your mouth. When I put up on P&B, right, that ain't he come out. You moving ounces, I just moved 100 things in a drought. You want the south side, outside the fence of your house. You talking all that, then wanna come talk it out. If you ain't talking money, you talking about.